glad to see you're able to get away from those guys. Right this way. We're almost there. Glad to see you made it to our secret training ground. I'm going to do a quick exam on you, then we'll do a little disclaimer and we'll get right back into our little studying that we've been doing. Let's check in. How are you doing? Did you have an okay trip? Okay. Oh, let me see that. Let me see that on your arm there. Okay. Yeah, let me just take a look. You know what? You do have a little bit of a lesion. That you said that started when you arrived in the jungle here. Okay. Let me just take a look here. Oh, it's like a little nodule. Okay. Let's see. And it's spreading down this area. You feel your lymph nodes over here. So use it as a teaching opportunity. What I want you to do is I want you to look up, yeah, you're right. It is kind of spreading up there. I want you to look up Rose Gardner's disease or sporotrichosis. I can give you a reading assignment. This is a good handbook that you can use for studying pretty basic medical things. I'll have you read about it. But in the meantime, let me get you some griseofolin, okay? Or we'll get you, well, it's looking kind of bad. Yeah, this is something you can get. It's a fungal infection, basically. But, it's just spreading in a kind of weird way. Let's do some potassium iodine. Yeah, no, you can. What I like about this book that you can use is, we'll talk about it in a second. Let's get you taken care of. Let me listen to your heart and lungs since you've gone a long way. Oh yeah, this is mango, and this is cinnamon. You want to feed them? Hey, you can give them a chip. There's Chip back next to you. Yeah. See, he likes that. He likes you. You want to give one to her? There you go. Yeah, she likes that. Here, buddy, why don't you have a seat? What are you doing? They don't like the stethoscope. They think it's strange. You want more Chip? No? Okay. Alright. I know, I'm impressed you came all the way out here to my little secret training ground. Alright. Okay. Yeah, and remember we always listen to 4 spots. Okay, now I'm going to listen over in the back here to your lungs. Okay. Around this way. No, don't fight. Please don't go up there. Alright. Oh no, they're both really healthy. It's the only diseases you can really get from birds. You can get psittacosis. Neither of them have psittacosis. And you can get, there's some other, they can carry histoplasmosis and stuff like that, but they won't be symptomatic to it. There's a couple others, but these are healthy little ones. Okay. Well, it's good to see you're doing okay. Potassium iodine, you're going to take it about 3 times a day, 3 in your drink, okay? Since I want to take everything as kind of a learning opportunity, and you do have the little nodule with the lymphatic, basically see the kind of streak up your arm, what I want to do is show you a good resource. So as you know, we're continuing our way through this survival handbook, right? the SAS Survival Handbook, we're being quiet for 2 reasons. 1, because we don't want any bad guys to hear us. And 2, because this is a secret place, right? I'm an actual physician in both your world and mine, but we're meeting here in an in-between dimension, basically, here in the secret place. And so nothing I'm giving you is any kind of official medical advice for diagnosis or treatment of any disease. This is all secrets and self-care, okay? And of course, my goal is we can work together to learn how to do our homework, okay? But I wanted to highlight this book today. This is available pretty much everywhere. It's the Special Forces Medical Handbook. What I like about it is the way that it is written is very simple. This is something that I actually recommend my medics get. But what I like is that it puts it in order of how we actually write our medical notes, SOAP. So S being it gives you the symptoms, O it gives you the objective findings that you would expect, S being the subjective symptoms, what the patient tells you, O being the objective findings, A being the assessment, like what is the disease, what you'd write, and then P is what the plan is. And that's how it does for every single little section. And so here on this section, let's find the section for Sporothrix shinki, which is hard to say. So just turn our pages here. Is it distracting? The bird on my head. So, sporotrichosis. And so that section, it talks about how it begins, which is similar. You said that you've been having some exposure to some dirt, some decaying wood here in this jungle as you've been traveling. And then within a few days, you got the nodule going down the lymphatic area, right? It's hard. Yeah. And so that's sporotrichosis. It's a superficial fungal infection. And then, if you're not in a wilderness setting, right now we're in a wilderness setting, if you're not in a wilderness setting, you would do a lab culture, basically of those little indurated areas, right? Because that's the fungus is growing in there. And then, like I said, potassium iodine. See, I said 3 times a day. They say that too. 5 drops 3 times a day. What I like about this also, it makes things that's like potassium iodine would be a cheap version, right? I would use an antifungal in a more developed setting. I would use like a miconazole, a fluconazole, maybe orally, depending on the skin penetration. I would, they have amphotericin here. I would maybe try an oral griseofulvin or something else like that. I would do a little bit of digging to see what was the best antifungal in my area. But they say you can use potassium iodine, which is pretty cool because it's pretty cheap. Amphotericin B is a really nasty medication that you give IV that makes people really, really sick. And it's used for really dangerous big fungal infections. Not like that little thing that you've got there. So that's kind of a book highlight for you. So I'm thinking every time you come here to this secret place, we'll do a little check-in, see what's going wrong with you, maybe learn 1 or 2 little medical thingies, and then we'll continue reading. As you know, I'm a Fellowship of Advanced Wilderness Medicine candidate. I'm also a military physician, and so I've been studying a lot of these kind of things for a long time. I've studied operational medicine. Why don't you come up here, princess? People want to see you. I don't need you dangling off the chest. So I've done operational medicine type stuff, and so it's fun to study together, isn't it? Was your trip difficult? Okay. Alright. Well, let's get to continuing our reading. Alright, so let's keep going on packing things. I think our clothing thing we've already talked about. Remember, we're still in the first chapter, Essentials for Survival. So this is interesting. For the enthusiast, a major consideration in choosing clothing is cost. Surplus stores are very popular for the younger adventurer who loves to parade in camouflage clothing. However, Although the ex-military kit is good and cheap, it is already obsolete. And the big drawback of wearing camouflage or dark clothing is the risk of not being found when lost. The reason soldiers wear it is so they cannot be seen, which contradicts what you are trying to do if you do get into trouble. So most good outdoor clothing is blue or orange, some is reversible, so a contrasting color will always stand out wherever we find ourselves, just for survival. Sleeping bags. Two kinds are generally available. One kind uses hollow fill, man-made fiber. The other, and more expensive, is filled with down. Down is very light and gives much better insulation. Come up here, baby. Provided it stays dry. If it gets wet, it loses all its insulating properties and is very difficult to dry out. For conditions that are likely to be wet, the man-made fiber will be the better choice. Avoid getting your sleeping bag wet, however, as sleep will be seriously affected. Excellent bivouac bags made of breathable material are also available that will keep you dry in place of a tent. But in the long term, you cannot beat a tent, which can also be used for cooking and communal activities. Ooh, communal activities, is that what the kids are calling it these days? Keep your sleeping bag inside the bivy bag and stow it inside a compression sack to make it as small as possible. Keep the bag clean and use a kit mat or poncho to lie in. I'm going to add a little bit to this. This is why it's good to study this together, because we can use our experience and share that, right? Like doing cold weather stuff in the military. I really recommend something similar to the sleeping systems that we have in the military. When I was at NTC in California, which was very cold, desert in the winter, helped a lot of my patients. So basically, it's got one layer sleeping bag, and then there's a sleeping bag that's basically the same as that one outside it, and then you have like a waterproof bag poncho type layer thing outside of that, right? And then all of that you put down on a ground pad. It is amazing for keeping you warm because and you can look into the physics of it, but the spaces in between the bags also add, it makes it harder for heat to escape, and so the heat gets stuck in those spaces and stays in. So just one layer, you have the dual effect of convection versus conduction. You're keeping it in by convection, but by conduction, because you're touching the bag is touching the ground is pulling that heat away from you, right? So having those layers prevents that, right? And it's similar to how we do the recommendations for hypothermia is when you're warming. That kind of layered packing is going to be ideal. So if you can get a sleeping system kind of like the Army ones, and this is where it would be a good idea to go to a surplus store, if you can find a sleeping system where you have the sleeping bag, a sleeping bag that contains that sleeping bag, and those are both, full squishy bags, and then the outer thing to keep things from being wet and to block transmission of the heat down, and then the ground pad. That is ideal. And it's not very big. Come here. Come up here. Yeah, I know. She is very territorial about her sticks. Come here. Okay, so that's sleeping bags. So let's look at survival packs. You need a strong and comfortable backpack to carry all your clothing and equipment. It should have tough and fully adjusted webbing, well secured to the pack's frame or fabric. Heavy loads can quickly loosen poorly made webbing, and must have a comfortable hip belt. That is the most important thing. I'll show you. I really like the design of the current rucks that the Army uses. They really do. They have this beautiful belt right around your hip. I've used it to go I've gone 25 miles before without my back hurting so much as like my knees and my feet, which is pretty incredible because that'll hurt your back carrying a lot of weight for a while like that. So definitely having it low on your hips is everything. The body's strong at pivot, not on the shoulders and back. Do you want to pack with an external or an internal frame? Internal frames are lighter and make a pack more easy to stow, but external frames are stronger, ensure a more even distribution of the load, and are especially useful for awkward or heavy equipment, including in an emergency, a sick or injured person. And the military ones have external frames. So that's what I like, and that's what I'm comfortable with. And you can attach other things to it, right? Makes things nice. So, it should be designed to allow an airspace between the pack and your back to minimize contact perspiration. A frame adds weight and is more prone to snag on rocky projections or branches, making progress through dense vegetation a little more difficult, but its advantages more than compensate. Finally, choose a pack made from tough, waterproof fabric, preferably with a lace-up hood inside the main sack to prevent water leaking in and the contents falling out. Side pockets are always useful, but they must have secure zips rather than straps or drawstrings, which do not hold equipment safely. If you expect to get wet, stow everything in polythene bags. Pack so that you know where, and you can use a Ziploc bag. That's what that means. Pack so that you know where everything is, and so the first things you need are not buried in the bottom. The sleeping bag is probably the last thing you need, so that should go at the bottom. Your tent should be on the top, so should heavy kits such as radios, which are more easily carried there. Though try to not make the pack too high, as a very high pack will be more difficult to balance, and you'll expend a lot of energy just keeping upright. Pack a stove and brew kit in a side pocket so you have easy access when you halt. Make sure that foodstuffs that can be easily squashed or melted are in suitable containers. In a warm climate, you can carry food to eat cold and make plenty of hot drinks. In a cold climate, make sure you have plenty of fats and sugars. The extra rations depend on your taste, but they should be chosen to give a good balance of vitamins, minerals, fats, proteins, and carbohydrates. Take into account the extent to which you will be able to live off the land, and carry a supply of anything unlikely to be available locally. And we'll study together some of this stuff that we can use. We'll do some foraging and studying. I really recommend, if you're interested in foraging, that you check out the Green Dean. You can just Google him. His website, I think, is Eat the Weeds. Yeah. So Google Green Dean, Eat the Weeds, and you should be able to find some really neat stuff. He's got, he does like all kinds of plants. They're mostly North American plants. You might need to look into something else for plants in other areas of the world. There is a really small army book. There's a little army survival book for the U.S. Army. This is the British Special Forces, or the secret, what is it called? The Special Air Service, right? But there's the army pack stuff. There's a little army book that's a survival guide that is a field manual of the U.S. Army, and it's got some stuff for all different terrains and areas too. And so we can go over some of those food survival things. Yeah, I have that book somewhere in one of my trunks. We'll go over it together. All right. GPS. A global positioning system is an excellent piece of equipment that has taken a lot of skill away from the navigator. Basically, these systems receive radio signals from satellites and can locate your current position anywhere in the world, and are relatively easy to use. You need at least 2 satellites to get a position, but the more the better. It is also useful to note that they are reported to have a 95% accuracy rate. However, in order to work, the satellite transmission must not have any obstructions in its way. So to receive a clear signal, you need to be standing still and out in the open. If we depend solely on technology, our basic skills will suffer and we will become unstuck if it becomes unserviceable or is lost. A GPS is not effective unless you can identify where you are, so stick to the basics. Map read and navigate normally, and use the GPS to confirm your navigation or correct it. And we can also, there's a book called Don't Get Lost that we can go over to kind of study land nav together, which is the hardest thing. Very difficult for me. When looking to buy a GPS, there are several considerations to think about. What you'll be using it for. If walking, you will want the unit to be as light as possible and compact. Where you'll be using it, and if you need it to be waterproof. This is usually a feature of the heavier models with extra gadgets. Battery life should also be taken into account. Some GPS are more complicated than others, so choose the model that you are happy with. most have the facility of being able to put in waypoints. At sea, this means the eastern and northern coordinates, and there are many convenient handheld versions, and some are even featured on watches. There is always a danger of any battery-operated equipment will let you down right when you need it. So, and batteries always discharge faster in the cold and with age. Mia, you have something on your face. Yeah. Hold on. Let me get it. I think it's... Don't be alarmed, it's a little bug from your walking in the woods. There we go. It's gone now. Yeah, see, it's over there. Well, it's harmless. I try not to kill stuff unless I have to. Oh yeah, like that time we had the spider situation. Yeah. Yeah, I'm tracking. Alright. So, recharging facilities are difficult in the wilderness, although solar panel chargers and extra power packs should keep them charged. And bad connections caused by constant abuse while on the move are a real menace. It was amazing. I wasn't in any kind of austere conditions in Puerto Rico, but it was so hot and humid. It really does make a difference in how things decay, and all my stuff was exposed to the heat all the time because I didn't have air conditioning. So that it does make a really big difference. This is the kind of extra battery pack I have. It lasts a really long time. It's an Anchor, you can see. And so I carry some of these, and they can charge anything that's got a USB port. This one is making noise. I don't like that. It's not good for ASMR. So I like that battery pack. I also have a radio that you can crank. They have those too, and it's also a flashlight. You crank it to generate power. That's a good one. It's for like an emergency power source, and you can crank it to charge something like a cell phone. For something bigger like a laptop, which is my next step, I'm gonna, same kind of thing, try to find a crank thing. I'm also in the market for solar. I don't have a solar one yet, but a solar recharger is good. So these options are available to you, and you can know what they are. And the nice thing about having these little battery packs, these Anchors, which is not a sponsor, sponsor me if you want, they're also USB charged, so in a pinch I could charge them off of my hand cranky thing, and then I would have multiple for if something goes wrong with my GPS or something else like that. Yeah. So carry the GPS around the neck, tucked under the jacket. This will minimize the risk of damage and protect it from the weather. Don't place it in your pack or leave it lying around, because people will steal it too. When planning your route from the map, choose prominent points that can be used as emergency rendezvous. Have these at regular intervals, preferably every hour of walking. Enter them into the GPS and they will keep you on track. Once entered, they will offer information as to where you are in relation to these points and tell you what direction to take to reach them. Yep. For a long expedition in remote territory, a radio is necessary. These tend to be expensive, but are well worth the cost. Choose a model with the least amount of channels available to suit your particular needs. That is a big deal, so you don't get confused and use the wrong channels. Make everything easy. And then everyone needs to agree to check in at established schedules on these radios, so that if someone doesn't check in, you know that there's an emergency. And a priority channel that no one will use, so you can use it for emergency and no one will break your transmission. And of course, if you're working with the Coast Guard Rangers or somebody like that, you need to know that your stuff is compatible, right? Know the frequency of the World Service. That's neat. I haven't even heard of those before. Keep it ideally on a person and not in a pack. And we had these in our BOLIC, and basically in our baby boot camp training, we had these by would carry on our backs. By by platoon. Each platoon had to carry some. They're so heavy. And they had many, many channels, because they also have secure channels and all that stuff. And we had to know how to like reassemble them. And things like that. Was kind of neat. I would not recommend one like that. They're very heavy duty though. They wouldn't break at all. I would want something smaller for an expedition, since, you know, unless you're doing secret squirrel stuff, right? Prearrange a signals plan with scheduled calls morning and evening, especially in a large party. A signals plan entails people manning the radio at base and two-way communication. Make sure that your chosen frequencies work in the area where you're going. So, write down what you want to say before making contact and have pencil and paper ready to take notes and take instructions, so that you don't just talk. Listen out before transmitting, otherwise you will interfere with other stations. Everyone has verbal diarrhea when they talk on the radio. I remember RSVP. Rhythm. Don't talk like a Dalek. That's a Star Trek. Or not Star Trek, what is it? Doctor Who? Reference, that's funny. Speed. Talk slowly. Volume. Speak softly. Pitch higher than normal, and use the phonetic alphabet when spelling out place names. Do you know the phonetic alphabet? That's your homework. It's your homework. You need to look that up and learn to spell your name in the phonetic alphabet. You practice it. I learn a lot more of the phonetic alphabet, and I'm used to it a lot because there's so many in my name. All the different letters that no one ever uses. Right? So that's, the phonetic alphabet means like Alpha, Bravo, Charlie, you know, those ones, you know. Like my name, Victor Echo, Lima Delta, Hotel, Uniform, Yankee, Zulu, Echo, November. Like all that, you know. So, and you wouldn't talk at that speed on the radio, right? So, learn those, okay? That's a good one to start memorizing. Sure, we can do an ASMR video just of the phonetic alphabet if you want. It's a little dumb, but yeah, we can do it. We can study radio stuff to help you remember it. In the evening, give a situation report to base with your location, what you have done, and your future intentions. In the morning, receive an update on weather conditions, a time check, and other information that base can give you. A noontime call can be used to confirm your position. Signals will be weak in steep gullies and valley bottoms, and good signals will be received on top of high ground or across water. If you're tackling a dangerous aspect of the expedition, you may want to arrange that base listen out for additional calls so that in an emergency you can call for help and get a response immediately. Okay. An emergency plan should always be put into operation when 2 consecutive calls are missed. So, if that happens, you must return to or stay at the last reported location and await contact. Okay? Even if all is well, you shouldn't keep going. If you're the one who missed those calls, and you missed 2 contacts, stay in the same place because the base already knows to take it as an emergency, right? And that way you don't waste more resources. Mobile phones. They tell this story. A group on Everest got into trouble as they started their descent after summiting. They tried to raise base camp without success. The leader phoned his wife in Hong Kong on a mobile phone and reported their situation. She then alerted Kathmandu, who in turn alerted base camp Everest and effected a rescue. So, it's good to bring your phone with you. I have been using Google Fi for my international carrier. Not a sponsor. And I have liked them because they worked in most places in Paraguay. And they worked in most places in Puerto Rico. Not Puerto Rico isn't remote or anything like that, but Paraguay can be. There's some Google Fi worked better in some places in Paraguay than internationally than in my military hospital in the U.S. It tells you how bad the like jamming signals and things that are going on in the hospitals, in the military bases. It's crazy. So much technological stuff going on. Oh, and it worked Google Fi worked for me in Korea too, as well. I couldn't call. Now, the issues, I did have some issues. In Paraguay, in more remote areas, like as soon as I drove like half an hour out of the city, stopped working. In Korea, Google Fi stopped working when I tried to call, like it was weird, I could call US numbers. I had a lot of trouble calling Korean numbers. I almost couldn't raise them. Well, not entirely true. I could call Korean numbers. What I was having trouble calling, most of all, was having trouble calling the military DSN numbers. Couldn't call those at all on Google Fi. I was able to call some Korean numbers. That was possible. That did work. So I like Google Fi because I am lazy and I can't keep track of changing phone providers or buying new phone plans when I'm traveling overseas. So I use Google Fi when I travel and all the time. That's what I'm using. Well, I mean, not right now. I'm not on the phone right now. So that's what I use. If it's important to you to be able to call military DSN numbers, don't use Google Fi. If you're going to be out somewhere where there is really no phone service, like certain places in Paraguay, I think I would either go for like a Tigo, or I would actually go ahead and buy a satellite phone. So there's other options depending on where you're going to be. Essential to check the network coverage with the service provider before going abroad. So, and they talk about having an extra, like a burner phone. Keep one in the car. They are priceless when help is required. And a cigarette lighter is a convenient charger for the battery, providing you have an adapter. In a situation like this, you don't have a car, but with radios and phones, it takes less power to listen than to transmit. So make your call and listen for reply. Oh, I didn't know that. Texting is good for battery life, and you need less signal. Didn't know that either. With all electrical kit, water and moisture is your enemy. So if nothing is heard, don't despair. The transmitting side may be working, but not the receiving side. You never know. Make short calls on the hour. Someone may be picking up your signal, so don't give up. It's important. Someone might be listening to you. Once you receive confirmation the rescue is underway, keep the radio or phone on listening watch. In mountainous areas, an altimeter is a good idea. Relating the height recorded can help you determine what contour you are on and how far it is to the ridge or summit. You never have enough kit in an emergency. It's nice to have GPS phones, etc., but you can still manage without as long as you have the ability to improvise and adapt. Learn the basics and use technology for confirmation rather than depending on them wholeheartedly. Many survival sagas begin because of bad navigation, with people getting lost. Always plan for the worst eventually. Alright. How are we doing on time? How about we stop here for this time, and we'll meet again for more survival things shortly. Okay. You look like you need to rest. Sleep well. Well, we just talked about sleeping bags. There's a sleeping bag here. You can lie down in the back. We'll have a good meal. How do you feel about roasted parrot? Just kidding. Just kidding. Have you ever had roasted breadfruit? Bana? It's one of my favorite things. It's really, really good. You squish it real flat and fry it. I like it. People make it really, really hard and flat in Puerto Rico, but I like it still kind of squishy. I really like breadfruit. It tastes meaty. I'll get you some of that. Okay. Alright. You go lie down. And don't forget to take the potassium iodine. It's in the cabinet there. You can find some. You're gonna, remember it's 5 drops each time. In your water or drink or whatever. Okay. Alright. You do look tired. Rest well.